In adventure games, the player needs to go through a variety of dungeons to get new equipment so they can advance to more dungeons and eventually beat the game. The normal goal of adventure games is to save somebody that has been kidnapped, such as in the Legend of Zelda series. In these games, you play as Link and go through a number of dungeons and an overworld to eventually get to the final dungeon to defeat Ganondorf and save Princess Zelda. In most games of the series, Link can interact with certain characters, like merchants, characters that can give side quests, NPCs, and the enemies. Games of this genre keep the player engrossed in the game with easy gameplay that anyone can learn. With most games in the genre, the main protagonists of the games are silent because the player can feel as if they are that character. Adventure games can last anywhere from 6 to 40 hours just for the main game. The games can also be longer if there are lots of collectibles and dependent if there are lots of side quests. The player controls the character with the D-pad or the thumbsticks. Items can be mapped to certain buttons, and other buttons are used for attacking. Adventure games like the Legend of Zelda series are aimed at all age groups, as they don't have any mature themes to them. However, there are adventure games like Darksiders which are aimed at adults with its more mature themes. In all adventure games, there are puzzles that need to be solved. The player will need to use logic to solve them, and the puzzles also get harder as the game progresses. In early adventure games, there wasn't a visible map in the game, so the player would have to learn it to find their way around. In side-scroller games, the objective of the games is to make it to the end of a level and repeating until the game is over. A win in side-scroller games is when the player has completed the final level. In the Super Mario Bros. Games, a win is when Bowser has been dropped into lava and Mario has finally found Princess Toadstool. The game motivates the player with its fluid gameplay and challenging difficulty. There is only a competitive mode if a two-player game is being played, where the first player tries to get as far as possible before the second player goes. In the Mario games, Mario can interact with coins, power-ups, blocks, and enemies. Every person who plays the game plays it for a different amount of time. Some players will go through the whole game, while others will just play for a short amount of time. The player controls Mario with the D button, runs and fires with the B button, and jumps with the A button. The game is aimed at all age groups as it has simplistic controls, simple gameplay, and its non-mature subject matter. There are certain patterns in the game that the player will need to learn so they can play the game effectively. There are also hidden blocks and secret areas.
The adventure game genre involves placing the player into a story-driven open world. The gameplay mainly focuses on exploration, visual and physical-based puzzles, and scenes of combat. Other standard elements are gaining and using a versatile range of tools, some of which are upgradable. The main character can be customizable, although this is limited to certain aspects of appearance and their name. The genre mainly supports single player. An example of a game from this genre is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, where you play as Link in order to prevent the end of the world in 3 days. The puzzle game genre involves presenting the player with various problems that require logic to solve. These range from logical puzzles, such as mathematical sums, to physical-based puzzles like escaping a room. Other common elements in the genre involve time limits to make the puzzles harder, a hint system to help the player understand the problem, even though these are often limited. And finally, a penalty and a reward system to give the player a sense of achievement when the puzzle is complete. The puzzle genre is mixed with the adventure game genre on several occasions. This genre mainly supports single player, although some competitive multiplayer modes do exist on some of the games. An example of a game from this genre is Professor Layton and Pandora's Box, which the game's main objective is to solve the mystery of your mentor's murder. The role-playing game genre, or otherwise more commonly known as RPGs, feature some elements from the adventure games, such as a large open game world and focus on exploration. However, in terms of gameplay, the RPGs are more in-depth. Common elements of this is a more complex and detailed storyline, and a higher standard of character development. Examples of this are parameters that affect a character's performance in battle, and dialogue options outside of it. The genre mainly supports single player, however there is a subgenre of this that features hundreds of thousands of players online. An example of a game from this genre is Skies of Arcadia, where you have to save the world from the evil Valuan Empire.
The game genre puzzle covers a wide range of different games, all with the objective to complete tasks in order to finish. Puzzle games can test the player on their problem-solving skills, which could include logic, strategy, pattern recognition, sequence solving, and word completion. Most games have a puzzle completion element to them, although a true puzzle game focuses on the solving of puzzles as the main gameplay activity. The game I have chosen to talk about is Amnesia. The objective of this game is to regain your memory and leave the castle alive. Winning consists of regaining your memories. The player is motivated by a creature following them, trying to kill them. The player can interact with various objects in the surroundings. Some may even be locked and require a combination of events to be unlocked. Amnesia, and puzzle games in general, can be very competitive, especially with the addition of high scores. Amnesia is aimed at players who like puzzles, being spooked, and love suspense. The game itself tries to promote a sense of duty, considering the storyline in which at various points you are called upon to make moral decisions that affect the overall ending of the game. Amnesia can be seen to be an educational game of sorts. Players are required to remember the layout of various sections of the castle and where they are meant to go. Amnesia runs on the Steam client, which can be accessible to Windows, Mac, and Linux users.
The game's objective is to win the game by reducing the opponent's health to zero using a variety of characters and their unique movesets. A win in the game is classified by reducing the opponent's health to zero as a default option 2 out of 3 times. The player is motivated to continue playing the game by winning the game and having an enjoyable time doing so. The game is competitive either between friends or during esports because of a 1 versus 1 format between 2 opponents. The player will use their controller to input commands to control the character, which will perform moves that will be aimed at the other player. A match will last around 2 minutes with a 2-0 win on one side, but can be played with a variety of different ways between friends or at tournaments between different characters and all of their different movesets. The player uses a controller to control the game to input certain commands which will allow their character to use the moves unique to them. The game is generally aimed at middle-aged teenagers which will be interested in playing the game for fun, or those that will be interested in playing the game at a professional level to earn themselves money. The game promotes neither a good or bad behavior from players, with the minimal functions like no chat feature or no dialogue within the game. From an educational point, the game offers many ways in which a player's reaction times can be increased from playing the game, from inputting correct commands within a certain time period and making sensible counterattacks to enemy commands. The objective of the game is to defeat all opponents via surrender or by destroying all of their units and buildings. A win in the game is classified by the surrender of the opponent or by the destruction of all enemy units and buildings. The player will be motivated to continue playing by victories over other opponents, either in custom games or by ranked games. The game is very competitive because it supports a mainly multiplayer scene along with esports competitions which will earn teams a large amount of money for each win. The player can interact with all of their available units and buildings, along with enemy units and buildings to gain stats and figures about them. A normal game will take around 20 minutes to complete on average, but a campaign mode is available which will take around 10 hours of completion. The player controls the game using mouse and keyboard. The mouse is mainly used to select units and select options for them to use, but the keyboard can be used for hotkeys of these options too. The game is aimed at around 18-year-olds and those with a large grasp on RTS games as a whole because of the professional esports scene which is highly promoted. The game promotes good behavior with the threat of banning or suspension from any players who will break the code of conduct within the game. The game also has an educational value to it. The game will help increase the player's reaction times and memory. On the memory side, the game will help improve players' memory because they will have to remember build times, orders, and also which units are effective against which. For reaction times, the player will have to react against an opponent's moves and have to counter them in an effective way.
First-person shooters, or FPS, is a genre of game played from the perspective of the character, so the first person. That's to say, the players looking through the eyes of the main character they are controlling. First-person shooters is kind of like a subgenre of like action games. A common mechanic through all FPS games is to have a dot in the middle of the screen, or a projectile that the player sees as the sights of their gun, and the screen is moved around, and if say a target is behind that projectile, a shot would count as a hit. Another theme is to have the hands and gun of the player in the front of the screen to sort of help further get across this first-person view. You are seeing exactly what the player is seeing. Half-Life 2 can be described as a first-person shooter, and I would categorise it as a first-person shooter. It is first-person, there are a lot of guns involved, but it also has other mechanics like the gravity gun, which is a gun of sorts that can pick objects up and move them about, used as a weapon, but there's also lots of puzzle solving involved in the game. Using objects to solve puzzles, get around things. First-person shooters are also quite commonly story-driven because you are seeing through first-person's perspective of a character, and this makes it easy for you to get into the actions of the character, what the character's going through, the plot he moves through. Half-Life 2 is quite an interesting and unusual first-person shooter in the sense that you never actually hear Gordon Freeman, the protagonist, speak. People interact with him and have conversations with him, but he never actually utters a sound throughout the entire series. And I think this could only be done in the first-person genre. You really do feel quite alive in the character. Sort of your thoughts go through your head, although Gordon never says anything. This idea plays out quite well. It flows extremely well. A role-playing game is where the player takes control of the protagonist of the game, or collection of protagonists, and plays out their role, usually immersed in a fictional world. Many role-playing games come from age-old board games with dice, due to the sort of fantasy setting and the ideas that were sort of ensued in the board games, and the themes and ideas were sort of taken to the digital world when digital hardware and gaming became popular. A common mechanic of role-playing games is the collection of items. Your player can pick up currency, items, weapons, lots and lots and lots of different things, not just guns, not just weapons, but lots of things, items that can perhaps be used, items that complete quests, items that aid the player, weapons of course as well. Another recurring theme in role-playing games is the progression the character takes throughout the game. To play the role as the character develops and moves through the story, he upgrades himself, he betters himself, he makes choices, he collects things. Things are forever changing. This is part of the immersion of the game. You feel like you are actually getting somewhere, you are actually growing as a character. I feel The Elder Scrolls Oblivion does this quite well. At the start of the game you emerge from a prison in rags, you have no money, no weapons, no anything. You're given the epic quest, the epic task to complete to save the world, but from that beginning of the game to the end of the game, you find a hell of a lot of things. You progress, you grow, you make money, you get weapons, various armour upgrades, many things to be done. Another theme in RPGs, and Oblivion in particular, is the open-endedness to them. This comes through being able to travel in any direction or talk to anyone, but also not just follow a main quest, take side quests, and this is sort of to do with the options of role-playing games. You have options to do what you want.
Action. The objective of an action game is to defeat all of the enemies and overcome any obstacles to progress through the levels. A win in an action game happens when the player completes all of the available levels. The player is motivated to continue playing by wanting to complete all of the available levels and finish the game. The games can be very competitive as they have multiplayer, which includes various game modes such as free-for-all, team deathmatch and many others. The player can interact with all sorts of things in-game, such as the game's environment, the AI, and other players if the player is playing in an online multiplayer match. The player would play an action game for about 2 hours, as the compelling storyline and competitive multiplayer will keep them busy. The player controls the game using different devices such as an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 controller, or a mouse and keyboard if played on a PC. Action games are aimed at anyone who likes action and players who just want to pick up the controller and have a couple of games online. Players can improve their reaction time by playing action games, as the games include many times where reactions are needed to be able to defeat an enemy. Real-time strategy. The objective of a real-time strategy game is to gather up lots of resources, build up a big army and a base, and then find and destroy the enemy's army and base. To win a match in a real-time strategy game, you have to destroy all of the enemy forces, units, and their buildings, which then ends the match, resulting in your victory. Enjoyment and competition is what motivates the player to keep on playing and defeat all of their enemies. The games can be very competitive, as all of the players will be playing to get all of the resources, build the biggest armies, bases, and destroy everyone. Players can interact with many different things inside of the game, such as resources, the environment, units, buildings, and structures. Players may play the game for up to 2 hours, as the games can last for a large amount of time and become very immersive. Players control the game with many different controllers and devices, such as an Xbox controller, a mouse and keyboard, or keys on a mobile phone. The real-time strategy genre largely appeals to players who play the games professionally, such as StarCraft 2, which has leagues and tournaments for people to compete in. Players can learn things from real-time strategy games, such as learning how to plan ahead and learning patterns of AI when playing against the enemy, and helps with memory, as there are different build times and hotkeys to remember.
Hi, I'm Liam Wilson. I will be discussing the MMO genre, or in other words, games that are massively multiplayer online. My chosen game is Icarium. This is an online game but is based around Greek empires. It allows you to create your own empire and try and become the very best in a variety of scores, all of which are highly competitive. As explained, the objective of the game is to try and achieve the highest overall score on a server or world when contending against other players. However, other scores, such as gold score, offensive and defensive scores, can act as objectives. Although the game has objectives, its gameplay can last days, weeks, months or even years. It is never ending, and the win is not necessarily possible, other than beating an enemy in a battle or friendly score rivalries. The motivation includes the drive to build a large empire with advanced cities, as well as new pirate features and long-existing war features. The game is overall a fun experience for players both old and new. The player can interact with their buildings, island features, and other players, obviously. This can include trade, transport, piracy, and war with other players. The bird's eye view allows the player to easily control the game with a suited perspective for management of towns. As with a lot of MMOs, Icarium is very text orientated and involves a lot of clicking buttons on screen to do tasks. The target audience is highly flexible, from young players to adults. I began playing at 11, and I know some people who are still playing in their 30s and 40s. The game promotes good and bad behaviour. The good behaviour includes learning how to use correct grammar and spelling on the boards and when messaging players, as well as improving communication skills and logical knowledge in terms of tactics within the game. The bad behaviour would mostly be violence related, although the game is fairly low in terms of extremity of violence. The game runs on PC and is a browser-based experience, although mobile apps are available for Android and iPhone to play the game. The second genre I will be discussing is role-playing games or RPGs. The chosen game is Fable 3, which is highly renowned in the gaming industry as a successful RPG. Set in the industrial ages, Fable 3 offers the descension from royalty to nobody as you discover your hero blood and set on a quest to save the kingdom. The objective of the game is to overthrow your brother, Logan, and his tyrannical reign over Albion, although further delving into the game will reveal a plot twist towards the end that will change your main objective. A win would be raising enough money in this new plot twist that saves enough people from the darkness without compromising the happiness or beauty of your empire, although this is very difficult. Like the majority of RPGs, if the main quest line isn't enough, there is a variety of other fun things you can do within the game world. This is very powerful in terms of motivating the player, although the ever-changing storyline and world within the game is more than enough to hold interest. The competition in Fable 3 is minimal. The only competition that can be seen is online. There is a wide variety of things within the game world that the player can interact with, including chests, demon doors, caves, dive spots, charity, to the homeless and much more, as well as people that relate to the main storyline and offer quests. The game can be completed when following the main storyline only in a time of less than 12 hours, although side quest participation and other interesting points within the game make the playtime for the general gamer much higher. The player controls the game using an Xbox controller, and this allows ease of movement around the game world to be achieved. The controller use is also comfy for combat features and interaction with objects within the world. The target audience is late and early teenagers as well as young adults. Fable is highly dynamic in terms of rewarding good and bad behaviour. The game will change in not only the overall outcome, but also the finest details to your character, depending on whether you make the good or bad choices within the game. The game often involves riddles and puzzles which may offer some educational value to gamers. The ability to manage properties in the game also offers a basic education in property management. The game was originally an Xbox 360 exclusive, although PC versions have been developed.
Grand Theft Auto is an action game genre, and basically the objective of the game is, in story mode, to try and get 100% game completion. To complete the game, I believe it's 60%. That's without completing every single mission throughout the entire game. So technically the completion of the game is at 60%. But to complete the whole 100%, you have to finish all the missions, buy all the houses, cars, and then just go into certain question marks on the map that have nothing to do with the missions that you're doing to complete the game, and also collecting like tags around the map, certain tags, and completing certain stunt jumps as well. That, in some way, that's a fun aspect of the game as well. And in my opinion, I don't know, it's fun. But obviously trying to find all the stunt jumps and all the emblems is quite annoying because they could be anywhere. The player, like I said, can interact with the game on the campaign, or they've just introduced a multiplayer, or they've just launched that. And I haven't actually tried it yet, but what I've seen, it's really good. You can make your own crew, design your own emblem for the crew, make your own characters, add your own statuses on Rockstar Games social club website, and yeah, it's just a fun experience, especially after have a laugh and just meet people around the world and different clans and battle it out. And I think one of the best things I like to do is do races and obviously try and make my car as powerful as possible. To reach the highest level on GTA online, I presume, is 100, or that's what I've seen, is 100. And throughout ranking from 1 to 100, you unlock different unlocks for shops, clothes, different parts for cars, raising money each time you do a job, and I just think overall it's just a really fun game. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter game genre, and basically the main objective of the game is to either get the most kills of a certain game mode, or by doing certain strategies depending on the specific game mode, to basically win the game depending on what you have to do in that specific game mode. There's a lot of game modes out there on Call of Duty games, and they all have different certain rules to complete the game. What motivates the player to keep playing is basically the fun aspect of the game, depending on if you're a skilled player or not. In my opinion, it's always fun playing Call of Duty. Basically Call of Duty is trying to reach the highest rank and then being able to prestige, of which prestiging is basically getting a new emblem. You get new unlocks and all that. When you prestige, you get new emblems, but the bad side to it is you start back at level 1 again. You have to work your way up to the prestige level to present the prestige again. Prestiges, you all have to go to 10th prestige or master prestige on the new Black Ops 2 game, which is quite annoying because I don't know. It's just effort to try and get to the highest level. After prestiging every time, after unlocking all your guns, and you have to get rid of all your guns again. So, and just unlock and rank again, which is really, really annoying. But I suppose that's the fun aspect side of it, having a fresh start again. The game's platforms are on Xbox 360, PC, PS3, and Wii. And I think it's on DS as well. On some of the Call of Duty games on DS.
Hello, my name's Scott and I'm here to talk about FIFA 14 in the sports genre. The objective of the game is to pass the ball around and hopefully score a goal. The more goals you get, and the less goals you concede, you win the game. To win the game, you need to score more goals than the opposition. What motivates the players to continue playing, one of the reasons in FIFA 14 is a thing in there called Ultimate Team, and it's to get the best team on the game and get the most amount of money through the game. That's just a load of wins. The game is very competitive, as you're always wanting to win a game. You always want to beat your opposition. The player that play there, they can interact with the ball, other players, the goal, the net, the post, the crowd. Sometimes you kick the ball into the crowd. You can interact with throw-ins, substitutes. You get to see managers. There's quite a few things you can interact with. The player will play the game for at least a year, and then that's when they release the new one, which will be next year, FIFA 15, if this one just came out. The player controls the game with either an Xbox 360 controller, PS3 controller, keyboard, mouse. You can even use it as touchscreen on the iPhone or Android systems. You've also got, with the Xbox, you can use Kinect to tell your players where to go and substitutes and stuff like that. The target audience is 3+, as it's there's no any age rating really, just 3+ appropriate. There's no violence or anything in it. The game can promote fair play and good play. So it promotes stuff like not getting any yellow cards in a game, you get XP for that, not getting booked in a game, not doing certain things within the game. It promotes all FIFA fair play. It's got FIFA fair play written around the sides and stuff like that. There is an educational value. The educational value to the game is that it can teach children and even adults on the actual rules in football, such as the offside rule, what's a foul and what's not a foul, and really just things like that. And finally, the platforms the game is run on is Xbox 360, PS3, PC, Android, iOS, and I believe it's on Nintendo as well now. So yeah.
I'm Jordan Brown and I'm going to be talking about the stealth shooter genre of games and real-time strategy genre of games. The stealth shooter genre of games involves using certain tactics like silence weapons or sneaking around the enemy. The games usually consist of many levels which are involved around a story, proposing situations where you have to come up with a solution to get around that problem. The player may have AI characters that help the player, or the player may have to help them to achieve the objective. Because most stealth games are story-driven, they do not offer much freedom like open worlds. An example of this genre of games is Sniper Ghost Warrior 2. This game sets the player as a trained sniper. The player is given a silenced sniper rifle and a silenced pistol, and runs through a story using various stealth tactics. This game makes use of factors like wind speed and target distance when shooting. Games like these are mainly aimed for gamers who look for realism and action. Real-time strategy games are based around you being the commander or a godlike being with a top-down view of the world. Unlike strategy games, which are turn-based, this is a continuous game where both players or a player control their units in real time. This genre is very competitive, especially when played against other people, as it requires focus and strategy. An example of this genre is Age of Empires 2. This game requires you to use your units to farm resources, advance through the ages, and build an army.